Hello again. Really important thing happening with humanity right now in terms of the evolution of machine intelligence, iterative intelligences, and how they're used to create art, whether that be written or visual. And I think that it's really important to tie this into and use this as a learning experience to reflect on what art is in the first place. And something that helped me a lot was thinking about what is chess. Chess is a game with two players where all of the possibilities that are on the board can be calculated. There is always a best move, there is always a worst move with the highest possibility of leading to winning for one side. But there's a second side, and you can't play the game without two people, or at least a willingness to fight against the odds, which are completely determinable. It's a closed system entirely. So I've always loved chess because I've seen it as a conversation about something really intimate when two minds can touch each other, even if the goal of the game is a very simple thing, just the amount of reaching out and intermingling of the psychic tendrils, if you will, is really intimate and beautiful. But you have to have a willingness to lose in order to learn. Like, even the people who perfect the game as great as possible, like the greatest player of today, Magnus Carlsen, he was so upset because somebody was able to beat him in a way that is questionable whether or not he was doing it by his own willpower. But imagine how beautiful it would be to find a rival, someone who can actually stand up to you. If that were the case, I'm sure that Magnus would have reacted very differently. Like, to have someone to play against is the biggest part of chess, which is why, as you get closer and closer to perfection in chess, the less so that it becomes a fun game. It's the most fun, the worse you are at it when you have somebody to compete against. You need to have a willingness to lose. When you perfect the game, then that's the end of the conversation. The better you are at thinking about playing chess, the less so that you're able to communicate with the other person because you're more communicating with the game. But that creates art. A lot of people have viewed chess and the different strategies you can use less in terms of probabilities of winning, but the artfulness of it and the elegance of how to move forward. And this is something that's also expressed, surprisingly for a lot of people, in mathematics. What's the most artful way of reaching the solution? What's the most simplistic way? How can somebody communicate through creating an algorithm, through creating a, what's the word? I don't know how to edit. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say, and if you don't, it's okay. You get the picture. All right. For example, finding out the mathematical formula for determining formulas, that's the word, for determining randomness and how that connects to the concept of fractals, in particular, the very famous fractal of the Mendel set, Mandelbrot, the Mandelbrot set, and how its shape is relevant to so many different, supposedly unrelated areas at first, and about how it couldn't take the specific form that it's most recognized as without the base 10 system that we're used to in the majority of the world. And so randomness itself becomes something that is mathematically determinable, even if the results of that randomness aren't, which ties into multiple universes and all of the people who ascribe holy ideas to the Mandelbrot set. And I do to an extent, but it's good to not go too far about that. But there's the art of math, is what I'm trying to get down to. And elegance in art and elegance in math, and even in the art of, say, the punchy fighty stuff. There's the martial arts, and it's less so about expression of feeling and more so expression of power, prowess and passion and perfection once again. And the conversation is between the player and an ideal, as well as between all of the other people who are pursuing martial arts, trying to get closer to that ideal. Like the great martial artist Bruce Lee, in one of the films that I've seen, I know this is a philosophy that he followed in his own life, was looking to move beyond style and become martial arts itself. And when mathematics and arts meet, it's a conversation about when you reach the end, when you become the art, there's a death there, and it's a holy transformation. And it takes a lot to know when to bring the word holy into things. But when you reach the ideal of some idea, whatever idea it might be, even if it's one of those silly arts or crafts, or if you want to call them lesser arts that we have today, of flipping bottles over. There was that stack 'em obsession that people had, you stack up the cups into a pyramid and break them down as fast as possible. There's an artfulness to that, which brings us to the AI art thing, like I said at the beginning of all of this. AI art really can't develop in the same way that we can, because it isn't trying. It's a system without a goal. It's more so the AI itself is the art, rather than what it produces is how well the AI has been developed. And it leads to an end of a conversation there. It can't really have a conversation itself. It can only be a part of the conversation between sentient beings. And that goes into the idea of value versus wealth, which I think is an important conversation to be had in the field of economics, because there are so many different ways of determining value, whether that be from the earth, whether through market value, or through the labor theory of value, which is all interesting. But I think that people conflate value development with wealth development too much. True value is only in people themselves, sentient people. No, Lori, this connects to everything. My mother is so nosy, and I just got to get this out. She's lovely, though. She means me no harm. Okay, so we get to the end here. There's this holy death, but this gift of death, this gift of imperfection, that there's an ideal that can't really be reached, that there's always something to strive for, this continuing of the conversation, this will towards failure is almost like a will of the universe itself. In the same way that AIs are our art, it's almost like we are art of the universe itself. You know what I mean? Like, we are the sentience of the universe, which is something that you hear a lot, but just in the context of we are creations, in the broadest sense, that when a lightning strikes a rock, there can be shards of jewels around that create our own creations, and we have feelings, and those feelings are intertwined with all of these other naturally occurring systems, and it's in a really special way. And when you reach the end, what next? What is the perfect game of chess like? What is the perfect game of chess? It's a resignation. When you know everything, there's nothing else to do but to resign. And then what next? You either create a new story, which chess is a story to begin with. It's an evolving story. The rules have changed. The way that shogi and Chinese chess, I forget the name of all of the different variations of that, have developed over the years, about how they were inspired of a holy myth of a battle in India, about how the queen became more powerful because of British expansion and their love for their queen, and the artfulness of crafting the pieces. Chess is not just a mathematic thing, not just an art of perfection, not just a conversation. Chess is about story building. So that's what happens at the end of chess. We invent a new story, we invent new rules around that new story and begin over again. Or randomness. We go for a game where we don't have a lot of control, where we can't predict the outcome because we're returning to a state of chaos, which is much more than a state of nature like at the beginning of humanity, but more like what I was saying before about letting the lightning strike and letting jewels come out. I feel like Mahjong, in a lot of ways, is a response to chess or blackjack or poker or what have you. All right. That's a lot in 11 minutes, and I hope you all have a lovely day. Peace and love.